What's up, everybody? Welcome to Draft Chaff. This is episode number 166. My name is Zach. I'm one of your hosts, and joining me, as per usual, Ben Fisher. What's up, dude?
You're not going to introduce our other guest?
Our other guest?
Yeah, okay, I can introduce it. Check it out.
Oh, hey. Look who we have here.
Yeah, there's in all its glare and glory. Should I turn my screen brightness down? Will that help? Maybe.
No, I think your webcam just sucks.
That's true, but presented here for the first time is my fully graded One Ring. Technically, it is a One Ring.
Well, and it is yours. I mean, it's the serialized one. You're the only one in the world who has that one. So
yeah, number 84 of 900. This one, it's back. It's here. It's been graded. There's a little scuff on the case, but I guess I can't hate Beckett for that. Because the inside of the card is great. It came back a mint 9, which, that's good. For those that want the detailed breakdown, centering 9, corners 10, edges 9.5, surface 9. It's here. I got the ring. So still not
Sweet.
entirely sure what I'm going to do with it. Probably maybe hold on to it for a little bit. Maybe sell it. I don't know. I'm open to ideas.
Do you know what's happened to the value of those since you opened it?
Yeah, I've actually joined a couple Facebook groups, really big collector heads, ones that are mainly for people looking for specific serialized cards. And I've seen similar ones, higher numbers, which it's all just a luck game, really. Once you have it, I've learned. The lower the number, the better. Like a card in the 20s will just sell for more than a card in the 30s, unless there's like special ones like triple numbers like 444 or 333, or like 69 and 420. Those types, those tend to go
Naturally.
So, as they do, yeah. But otherwise, no. This is it's under 100, so it's in the top 9th, I guess. So I don't know. I might just post on one of those groups to see if people are interested. Try to gauge about like the range people are thinking, but looks like it has maintained its value and they're not making more, so I guess I could just hold on to it for now. Definitely
That's awesome.
The highlight of my collection for sure.
All right. Well, before we jump into the rest of the episode, of course, our usual housekeeping. If you're not already in the Discord, do check that out. It's the best place to be to chat all things MTG, discuss your picks, talk about trophies. Of course, right now we're in the middle of spoiler season, so that channel's kind of popping off, and people are having a lot of fun talking about the wacky cards that are coming out in Wilds of Eldraine. So definitely jump in there and check that out. The link to that is in the episode description as well as on our Twitter page. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/draftchaffpod. Huge thanks to each and every one of our patrons who continue to support us every week. We are beyond grateful for all of you, so thank you so much for your support. Perks over there include things like our Draft Doctor series, stickers, show notes, our pre-show recordings, and our Draft Chaff hero cards signed by us and sent out to you. Again, you can check that out at patreon.com/draftchaffpod. All right, on to our Cracker Draft type thing. Ben, what do we have here?
We have some nonsense. This weekend is apparently the Arena Cube Open, which I will be doing as many attempts of as possible. Hopefully enough to make day 2 and maybe cash, because the Arena Cube has been a format I've enjoyed in the past. Cube is awesome. I've been playing a lot of Vintage Cube, actually. Lots of 2-1s, not a lot of 3-0s as usual. Usually someone just does something a little more busted than I am. But that's the Vintage Cube, it's a challenge. But the Arena Cube is still pretty good. It's kind of the top, I don't know how big it is now. It's got to be 540, right? 500-ish best cards on Arena. Unfortunately, that does include alchemy cards, so you might have to study up if you haven't been paying much attention to alchemy. But they've also just been like sneaking in a bunch of cool cards here and there, and I don't know, if you think about all the ones that have come in these like extra sets here and there, little expansions to help out historic or explorer, or even the bonus sheet type things with the mystical archive cards or the artifacts from Brothers War. There's a surprising range of cards on here that I kind of forgot existed on Arena, just because they mostly see, I guess, historic or alchemy play or. Yeah. But anywho, let's discuss a pack one, pick one, and you'll never guess where the draft goes after. All right, so pack one, pick one here. Those that already saw my One Ring know this, but you can actually look at our video now. This is on YouTube if you're maybe already watching it here. What's up, YouTube? Otherwise, if you're watching on Spotify video, you can see this too. Even if you're just listening on Spotify, just take a quick look if you want to follow along with our packs from this point onward. I like this feature a lot. It's pretty great. We've got an Unholy Heat in the pack. We'll start down here. It's whatever. Without Delirium, it doesn't really do as much. You can't really get it reliably on Arena. Even it's better in Modern, where you can put like a bauble in the graveyard or something reliably. The bauble might be in this cube. I don't know. It was on the Brothers War sheet. Whatever. Either way, it's like it's a deal 2 that can't hit face. So unless you're like a Jund graveyard deck, I wouldn't really think about taking this. We do have Lightning Strike, old reliable, 2 mana, deal 3 to anything. Never going to be incredible, but always going to be good. Soldier's Edict, I actually just put a couple of these in my Modern sideboard. Very reasonable card, but against certain decks, if your opponent is going wide and making tokens, then who really cares? Well, I guess
typically in limited,
their one non-token, but yeah.
Sure. Typically in limited, though, Edicts are kind of the worst removal you can find, and in a cube that's generally quite powerful, it's probably not going to be your best removal option.
Mm-hmm. We've got an Ulvenwald Oddity, a vintage cube card now, 4 mana, 4/4 trample haste, and it flips into an 8/8. It's no questing beast, but it's fine. C double, this one's kind of funny. You choose one, can't be copied. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard, you get to do both. You either copy a spell or you make a token that's a copy of a creature. And it's an instant speed 4 mana clone. It is a token, which makes it a little worse. It can get bounced for good or otherwise removed in certain ways. So I don't know. I'd like to see, maybe this could go in the Blink ETB deck, but the past few iterations of the cube, that deck hasn't been good. Believe me, I've tried. It just hasn't really worked. Oh, look, another 4 mana 4/4 with trample and haste that's in the vintage cube. Weird. Rampaging Raptor. This one's pretty good. It's the red version of Ulvenwald Oddity, I guess. It kind of has the Questing Beast text on it. Whenever it hits an opponent, it deals that much damage to a Planeswalker or a battle. So, fine card. You can also pump it for 3 mana. I beat someone in Vintage Cube with this card, so it's probably okay in Arena Cube, right? Just ramp into this, play it on turn 3. That's a 4/4 haste. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talk about often with cubes, and especially the higher powered cubes like Vintage Cube or Arena Cube, you're really looking for effects that aren't replaceable when you're taking your first handful of cards. And that sort of like Planeswalkers, well, especially the battle side of this effect, isn't super replaceable. There aren't very many cards that do this, so definitely seems like a card that you could keep in consideration for a first pick, but I don't know that I'd be super excited about a 4 mana 4/4 trample. Like on its own, it doesn't really seem all that fantastic for a first pick.
I mean, talk about replaceability. There's 2 in the pack, right? So
right, yeah. I mean, from a body, yeah, for sure. But again, like that effect at the end,
that part is good.
Probably not too many cards that'll do that in the cube. Yeah.
Next up, we've got Precursor Golem. This is the 5 mana 3/3 that ETBs to make 2 more 3/3s. And then if one dies, they all do. Or if one gets pumped, they all do. Kind of high risk, high reward card. I actually ended up wheeling it and taking it. It's fine in the Blink deck. But even then, it's not great. You can still get answered with one clean Lightning Strike, right? So not super high on this, but it does, create a bunch of bodies. You could probably sideboard this in against certain decks, and it'll be pretty great against like a mid-range creature matchup. 5 mana, 3/3s, pretty good.
Yeah, I will say, like, in the Blink deck, it's really only good if you can target it with, like, a creature or something like a Revelark or Flicker Wisp or something, like, because the instant sorcery ETBs would make the copies also bounce, and then
this is
that
not
doesn't
good with
really do anything. Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't even know this is on Arena. Phyrexian Metamorph? That's cool. Phyrexian Metamorph is very good. That's 3 and a Phyrexian for a 0/0, but you have it enter as a copy of any artifact or creature. And unlike a lot of the modern clones, this one's older. This one, you can copy your opponent's stuff too. So just gives you the best thing on the battlefield. I mean, this has been a Vintage Cube mainstay for, a decade? So very good card.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, it's 3 in a Phyrexian blue, so you can actually cast this for 3 mana, which is incredible. When you have this and see double in the pack, I am not seeing double. I'm taking this
Yeah.
almost every time.
There's a Phoenix of Ash here. That's the 3 mana 2/2 flying haste, and you can escape it. It's whatever, replaceable. I would take Rampaging Raptor over it even.
Yep.
I don't even know what this thing does. Futurist Spell Thief, 3 mana, 3/2 flash. When it ETBs, conjure a duplicate of target spell into your hand. That spell perpetually gains. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast this. So your opponent plays like a precursor golem, right? You flash this in response, then you get a precursor golem in your hand. And if it wasn't colorless, you could cast it for any mana. This just draws a card. This seems bad.
Yeah, this is one that like the floor can be really low and the ceiling can be really high. It just kind of depends what's going on. But then like you got to take a turn off kind of to play the thing that you just copied. Your opponent kind of gets to do their thing first with it. I guess since you can do this on their turn at instant speed, you maybe can take advantage of the card first. It really depends on what you're copying with this.
Yeah, like are you supposed to get a counter spell with this and then use it against their counter spell? I don't really think this one is good. Would you ever play a 3 mana 3/2 conditional flash draw card in like an arena cube? I probably wouldn't, unless you have like a ton of counters and like.
Think so. Yeah, I mean, this is a card that like actually kind of seems exciting as far as just like in any other format. I would be like, oh wow, this is actually quite good. I'm surprised how many. There must be like a copy cards archetype in this format because we've got C double, Metamorph, and the Spell Thief in the same pack. Like, feels like that's a sub theme going on here. That said, I mean, I think I'd rather have this over C double. Like this at least leaves a 3/2 on the ground that gives you something, and then like you can get a copy of that whatever card you're copying in your hand. You do have to then pay for the copy, which isn't all that fun.
Yeah, like it feels like it should also say return the original spell to its owner's hand or something, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah, like a remand
Mystic
effect
Snake
almost.
Effect. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. This one seems like junk. I would take Metamorph over it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Next up, Dromoka's command. This one's great. Green white for an instant. This is the modal command, but this one is one of the better ones. You can use it most often as a give one of your things a +1/+1 counter, and then have it fight something else. But you can also make them sack an enchantment or prevent all damage an instant or sorcery would deal. So maybe if you're about to get burned out with a lightning strike, you can counter it with a D command. Pretty good. It's double colored, so you're not looking to take too many of those super early. You usually want to stay a little bit more open, even though you can pick up some good fixing in the Arena Cube. But this is in Vintage Cube where you can just reliably play like a 4-color pile and it'll be good. In Arena Cube, you tend to want to stay to like 1 to 2 to 3 colors and only go past that in the most extreme of scenarios, which I never do.
Right. No, you're not really known for nonsense, Ben. Let's be honest here.
If I take like a lightning strike or something, pack one, pick one, I can't see myself ending up with like a Golos Yorion deck or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Imagine that.
Did I mention that this is an actual pack one, pick one from me and that I did this like 15 minutes ago? Anyway, next card up is Bomat Courier. This little guy's still going. 1 mana, 1/1 haste, and it kind of draws you a new hand if you can get in with it a couple times. Great in mono red, and that's kind of it. You don't really want this anywhere else.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal in that deck, though. It's like probably the best 1-drop in the deck if you can put that nice mono red deck together.
Mm-hmm. I don't think Goblin Guide's on Arena, right? Probably not.
Not to my knowledge.
Good. Oh boy, another alchemy card. Let's see. Absorb Energy. 1 blue, instant. Counter target spell. Cards in your hand that share a card type with that spell perpetually gain. This spell costs 1 less to cast.
Windmill Slam. I'm in.
This is junk, dude.
It's a better cancel.
Yeah, but how much better? Like, if you're playing, let's say, look at your average control deck hand. Like, if you drafted a blue-white control deck in Cube and you counter their 3-drop creature spell, now all the creature spells in your hand cost less. Remand is, little remand isn't, but reprieve has to be in this, right? The white one.
I don't know.
That I mean, there's 2-mana ways to interact in this cube, and this seems bad. Yeah,
but if you counter any instant with it, your control deck is now in God mode.
That's true. Well, your hand is. But what happens if you have like an Immortal Sun in hand or a Planeswalker in hand? Like this just isn't that good, I don't think.
No, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, though, it is just a cancel with upside. So like, if you need a cancel in your deck, this will do fine. I'm not first picking this, but if you need a 3-mana counterspell, then you're better off taking this than something like cancel.
Yeah, honestly, just watch my my first Yori, and this is going to get countered by an Absorb Energy out of like a blue-green deck, and then they'll play like a Hoof or something.
There you
go. Next up is Valky, God of Lies / Tibalt Cosmic Imposter. That's the old flip Tibalt, the good Tibalt, we should say. Yeah, I mean, this one is good in both modes. I guess you want to be, I don't know, this type of disruption effect is best. I mean, it's always decent, right? It's always a 2-for-1 until they can answer it. Problem is Valky, it's not like Kitesail Freebooter, where you take a good removal spell that they would otherwise spend on the Kitesail Freebooter, or maybe your next play, and it kind of adds a layer of insulation. Valky, you take a creature, so if they have like a bolt or a path or something in hand, then they can still just use it on the Valky and get their creature back. So that mode isn't great. The Tibalt Cosmic Imposter mode is great, though. I mean, this one was a win con in Standard for a pretty long time. So, and also, I'm pretty sure if you flip it or get some way to free cast it, you can cast either side. I don't know. The way this one works with the rules is wacky. I don't know what interactions like that are in the cube. But if you can find a way to cheat Tibalt Cosmic Imposter into play, you should do it. And last card in the pack here, this is one you're a fan of, Kenrith, the returned king, the Group Hugs All-Star.
Yeah, unfortunately, he won't be returning in Wilds of Eldraine, but this is just like a phenomenal limited card overall. Like, so much flexibility. 5-mana 5/5 off up front is not amazing in like an arena cube, but all of these effects are pretty useful, and you can really make this work in almost any deck. So I like the flexibility of Kenrith. I probably would go with that here, not knowing anything about the structure of this cube, because I do think it kind of keeps you open and leaves you with a solid card that can be played in most decks. Whereas pretty much everything, except maybe the Phyrexian Metamorph, I'd probably just take the Metamorph over Kenrith, to be honest.
Yeah.
Metamorph is literally going to keep you the most open because it can go in literally every deck.
I mean, right now, pretty cool new feature I'm seeing on 17 Lands. It has the ALSA, the average last CNET, and I'm assuming that is for the Arena Cube and not these cards home. I guess sets, right? Like this isn't the Lightning Strike from DMU. This is like in the Arena Cube. So it says that the ALSA for Lightning Strike, for example, is 5.05. So this is on average seen and taken pick 5. So I did take the Lightning Strike here out of this pack. I think I probably should have gone with the Metamorph. And the more I think about it, the more I would have preferred to have a Metamorph in my deck. I did wind up in 5-color Golos Yorion pile, and that deck could have used a Metamorph to blink and flicker with Yorion and do all that fun stuff with. But honestly, I don't hate the Lightning Strike in it either. I can support the red mana in the beginning. Like the early game, I have some of the red interaction spells, some multicolored interaction spells that I can support early as well. So I'm just curious what the lowest ALSA in this pack is. And honestly, it Metamorph is 4.95. Looks like there's no windmill slams here. 4.88 for Valky, and the Lightning Strike was 5. Yeah, so honestly, it looks like Metamorph, Strike, and Valky, if we're going to go with the will of the community, are the top cards in this pack. So, I mean, they're within just a few points of each other. Although Valky is a little below the Metamorph, which is a little below the Strike. But after that, it's just like an Edict, and then that's kind of it. Maybe this pack's just not good. I mean, there's nothing in here that categorizes as like a first 3 picks, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess
it's a little bit all over the place, but
yeah, you need something really busted for it to have an ALSA near 1 to 3, right? in that range, meaning people take it on average between, first to fifth pick. But no, there's no card in here that stands out that way. I don't know. It's also the Arena Cube. I haven't even been keeping up with it in that long, so excited to kind of wade back in and see what's going on in the cube.
All right, on to our Teferi Tibble. This is our Roses and Thorns style segment where Ben and I share a high and a low from the past week. So Ben, what's going on?
Not too much. Big Teferi is that the 5 mana one. Big Teferi, 5 fairy right. to 5e. Is that I've got the card back, the ring. So that's pretty cool. Very excited about that. Little Teferi, I'm getting a bunch more cards from Modern. I mentioned last week on the show that I got to play my beloved Stoneblade, Flicker, Orzhov scam nonsense. And I really enjoyed it. And the Modern RCQ season's coming up. So I'm going to lean a little more heavily into that, try to figure out what's going on in Modern, and just beat a bunch of One Rings somehow. If I thought to use them, what are they can't activate them if they're in the graveyard, right? So I'll just have fun with all that. So I'm looking forward to the Modern season for sure. I guess
are you allowed to say that on this show?
Look, it is a little anti-chaff, but don't worry, I still slipped some chaff in there. I've got the ephemerates in there from what was it, the Mystical Archive version of the ephemerates? That was chaff for sure.
Yeah, in that printing it was, yeah.
Yeah. I'd say a little Tibalt, I guess the 2 mana, the red Tibalt, the bad one, is that they just printed a bunch of new arts for a bunch of cards that I just got for Modern. Notably Leyline of Sanctity, which is the white one that gives you hexproof. Rest in Peace. I just got like 4 of them, and now they're going to reprinted. I spent like $4 a piece on them. Now they're going to be like 10 cents with way better art. So,
cool. These WOT arts, these enchantments are some of my favorite arts ever made. Like,
they're great.
I mentioned in the Discord there are 12 of them that I'm looking to get for one deck.
Oh man,
it was the deck that I mentioned I built last week. Which I'm still not telling you what that is. But there are 9 currently in the deck, and then there are 3 flex spots that I'm like considering running. 3 of the other ones, and
interesting.
Well, now they're getting reprinted, so I may just slot them in because they shouldn't be too hard to get a hold of. Pre-release is going to be fun. I'm very excited to see which ones I open.
Oh yeah, absolutely same. And I think this time around we made this mistake in Brothers War where we didn't talk about the Mystical Archives cards at all. Archives. I just keep calling them all Mystical Archives. I know that's not the bonus sheet cards. This time we will absolutely be addressing the bonus sheet cards in our breakdown next week. Next week, man. Yeah, and pre-release is right around the corner. So that's another big Teferi. But a Tibble is that I have like 1 week left of summer, and I have to spend a good amount of it prepping for school. So, anywho, what's up?
Yeah, so my Teferi is that, last weekend I went down to Maryland for my brother's bachelor party. We did like this camp out thing, so we camped over Friday night, and then all of Saturday we played paintball in the woods and it was like a massive event. There were like thousands of people there. There were tanks. Whoa. Like it was like a wild,
Whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Did the tanks shoot paintballs, or did they shoot?
So essentially what they are is they're like vans, like big vehicles, trucks or vans or whatever, that people armor up with, like they put like wood all over them, and then they cut holes in and have people inside with paintball guns that can just stick their barrels out of the holes and just light people up. And then there's usually someone on top that's like sitting on a turret style, like they cut part of the roof out or whatever, and they can like spin around and take people out. And then like some people on our team had like anti-tank like armory or whatever, like they had like grenades and stuff. I don't know, it's pretty wild.
I didn't know paintball went so deep. It's evolved a lot,
dude. It's crazy. That said, running around crouching and like kind of in the leaves and stuff for like 6 hours straight is really taxing on your body, and you're wearing a bunch of gear and stuff. It's not exactly the like easiest thing in the world. So it was pretty tiring, which I'll get kind of into in my Tibble. The other part of my Teferi is that I So I mentioned last week I built a new EDH deck that I'm really excited about. I've been kind of on a tear. I built 2 new ones today.
Nice. I don't know if that's
yeah.
allowed on this show.
Oh, come on. We love Commander here.
Yeah, it's true.
One of them is also definitely a Chaff deck. I built a Slimefoot deck finally, which I'm super excited about. And then
did you put the one good Saproling card in, the one with buyback and convoke?
Yes, yeah, that's in there.
Oh man, all right, that's gonna be a pretty good.
I don't know if
then.
I would call that like really good. I mean, I guess with the convoke, it's pretty solid, but it's 5 with the buyback. It's 5 mana, make a 1/1 Saproling.
Yeah, but once you get a couple more Saprolings, and then you can kind of just
itself, sure.
Yeah.
But yes, there are a lot of really bad Saprolings in there. There are some good ones. And I had to make some limitations, I would say, because like most people who run Saproling will add like Zulaport Cutthroat and Blood Artists, and
makes sense.
I gave myself the constraint: if it doesn't belong in a forest, it doesn't go in the deck. So
interesting.
The other one that I built today was Desparked Narset. So like the newer
I have to look that one up.
She gives all your creatures prowess, and then when she attacks, you can recast a card, an instant or sorcery from your graveyard with mana value less than her power. So
that's cool.
It's a more modern approach to the spell slinger kind of prowessy type thing, which I haven't had a deck like that in a while, so I'm excited to kind of have that.
Jeskai prowess, big surprise.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, you get the whole spread today. Then I mean that's all 5 colors.
That is all 5 colors. Yeah.
That's clean. Nice.
Yeah. Pretty sweet. I doubt I'll have any of. I might get the Slimefoot deck pretty soon because that's actually that's less than $100. It's like super inexpensive. The other deck that I am not telling you what it is I'm blinging that out. Like I'm so excited for that deck. It's gonna look incredible.
Okay, then I definitely don't want to see it before it's done.
Yeah, it's gonna be really awesome. Anyway, my Tybalt is that I'm really exhausted. I think I mentioned last week, like I was just kind of fried. Last week was just one thing after another. I never really had any time to stop and rest, and that hasn't really stopped yet. Hopefully this week I can rest a bit. And then my last Tybalt is that yesterday I did something 2 days ago I did something really stupid, and I was cooking, and normally when I cook I don't finish things in the oven, but I was making chicken, and I'll normally butterfly chicken breast, but to this particular dish I didn't do that. So to finish the chicken breast I put the pan in the oven and went about doing some other things. I pulled it out with a mitt, like a normal person would, put it on the stove, turned back to my cutting board, finished up something over there. And then when I turned back to the stove, I just grabbed the handle of the pan that just came out of a 400-degree oven.
Yeah.
Just completely barehanded. And yeah, that hurt. Luckily, I didn't do like any real severe damage. I've had much worse burns before. But I can hardly feel anything in my fingertips right now. So hopefully there's no serious nerve damage or anything.
Yikes. As long as you can still flick shuffle cards for pre-release in a week and a half or so, then
yeah, we should be good. We'll be fine.
Yeah, okay.
All right, on to our listener question of the week. And this week we have a question for you.
Yeah, do you want to see more gimmicks, such as the One Ring? Because this One Ring, honestly, this dominated not only kind of like the general limited discourse, but the entire Magic discourse, and honestly, the gaming discourse. I mean, I had friends who know I play Magic, and they would come up to me and be like, "You trying to get that ring?" And it'd be a fun jumping off point because everyone heard about this. If you were even slightly adjacent to like the Magic ecosphere, all collectible card games, this made a splash, and a lot of just nerdism in general. So this was obviously highly effective. Will they be able to pull this off again with like Fallout, Universes Beyond stuff? Will people be clamoring for? I don't see that happening. I think this was a unique one, but it was obviously so successful that I think they're going to try to emulate it somehow. I doubt we're seeing serialized cards go away anytime soon, which, I guess I can't knock that too much. Occasionally you open a value booster. So I don't know. What do you think, folks? Let us know in Discord, maybe in like the random section. And while you're in the Discord, letting us know, hit us up with some more listener questions.
All right, on to our main topic. And of course, this week it is, well, a bit bittersweet. It's our format farewell for Lord of the Rings. This has been a really fun format, and I think Ben and I are both sad to see it go, but we're also very excited to get something new and kind of see where things go. So if you're new to the show, we typically do a format farewell every set, and this is kind of just to say goodbye to the set. We're going to go through, give some Chaffee awards away to certain cards for various topics, and we'll kind of wrap up here with some of our expectations for the next set coming up.
Yep, time to hit up the Grey Havens, send these ships full of Chaff cards packing off into the Blessed Beyond or whatever. Let's start with our first one, which is the Chaffee for the most powerful card in the format. What do you got?
I really just went out of memory. I haven't drafted as much of this set nearly as you have been.
Not many people have.
Fair enough. But Unfaramir and the Palantir of Orthonc came to mind as two of the more powerful cards in the set.
Yep. Unfaramir is probably the worst to play against. It feels like the most powerful thing happening on the board. But I think that's because games usually last a couple turns after you've played Faramir. If we go by some of the stats, it looks like Anduril, the sword, was the strictly best card in the set. It's colorless. It's basically a sword, like a protection sword of X and Y, but it doesn't have the protection. Instead, it just makes tokens, which are even better because then they can wear the sword. It's very strong. I never actually got to play with it. I played against it a bunch, but I just never opened it, and we all know no one's passing it. So I just never got that one come my way. I will say Palantir. People did pass that one because they didn't quite understand what it was, but I never passed Palantir. That was definitely one of the most powerful cards in the set too. We got to shout out Bowmasters though, Orcish Bowmasters, making a splash in literally every format. It's pretty great. And a couple more power inclusions here. The One Ring and Horn of Gondor. These two took work. You know, I think people might have expected us to say those for the most powerful card in the format, but no, these ones are not worthy of the Chaffee. You couldn't just, I mean, I beat people after they resolved the Horn of Gondor because they had no other humans in their deck. You know, and you're still supposed to play in a no humans deck, I think, but it doesn't always go off. And I've definitely died to my own One Ring a bunch of times. And I've definitely seen other people die to theirs. Although somehow when they have it, they always have the fling, you know?
Well, speaking of, let's move on to our next one, which is the least powerful card in the set. This is the worst of the worst, something that actively harms you. I think the Ring takes the cake here. Like, it literally kills you.
This is a flavorful pick, I will say, but the Ring is... Look, the Chaffee we define to be the card that can actively harm you the most by putting it in your deck and playing it. And yeah, the Ring definitely can do that. It does give you a lot of advantage before it does, though. I
wouldn't say this is actually the worst card in the set, right? But in terms of actively harming you, it's probably one of the few cards we've had in quite a while that does just that.
Yeah, it's an all-timer for that. But as far as like actual low power, like put it in your deck if you want to lose more, Hugh the Entwood is up there for me. That's the like the 5-mana scape shift thing, except you might not even hit 5 lands. There was the Watcher and the Waters too. That one was kind of funny. I liked playing that one though. There was like a white equipment rare, I think. I don't know. You don't read those like after a weekend of the set. You're like, okay, it's the equipment thing. What's the best uncommon?
Yeah, I think the other one that came to mind for me was Last March of the Ents, which I don't actually think was like the worst card. It was actually kind of good if you could put it in the right deck and actually get to cast it and stuff. But I mean, it's like an 8-mana card that just like draws you more stuff. Like if you're not winning the game by the time you can play an 8-mana spell, like what are you doing?
Yeah, or like when you cast it and then they kill your 4/4 and then you get to draw one card off your 8-mana.
Right.
8-mana cycling. Exactly. Next up is the Chaffee for the most annoying card. What do you got?
Yeah, for me, this was literally any 1-power ring bearer. I just
whatever was on the field.
Yeah, I mean, the ring bearer mechanic ended up being something that could be really annoying in just about any sort of scenario. I mean, as long as someone built their deck a little bit to really care about having a ring bearer and using that properly, it can get really annoying really fast. That said, of course, we kind of already touched on it. Unfaramir just obviously is really annoying to play. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Ben. A lot of these most powerful cards are kind of concede while it's on the stack cards. And Unfaramir wasn't that. Like, you did actually feel like you could beat it, and then a few turns would go by and you're like, oh no, I just can't.
Yeah.
And that's annoying. Yeah, that feels bad.
Yeah. What usually happens is they cast on their turn, you're tapped out, and then it goes back to you and you're like, okay, it's a 4 mana 3/3 ETB draw card. That's no big deal. As long as I draw the removal spell this turn, like the Claim the Precious or the Smite the Deathless. And then you draw your card. It's obviously not that. And then you're like, okay, pass. You don't attack. And then they pass back. And you're like, all right, now if I draw the removal spell, it's kind of just like a 4 mana 3/3 ETB draw 2. That's good, but that's still beatable. You draw it, it's not that. And then this goes on for a couple turns until they've accrued like 5 cards worth of value. You haven't been attacking, so they don't get an army of 1/1s. It's a whole thing. For most annoying card for my Chaffee, I have the Frodo Baggins. Honestly, just seeing like a green-white deck, it's like every time the green-white deck had Frodo on 2, it would get followed with like 5 rare legends, and they would just win after that because Frodo on 2 followed by a bunch of legends is actually really good. Occasionally a green-white deck wouldn't play Frodo on 2, and then you would just wipe the floor with them. I will also shout out the ring, because the ring does have that invalidation aspect to it, where every single thing that happened before it, like all the creatures you built out, well, they get a turn of protection and then they get to draw 3 kill spells or something. So the ring was pretty annoying to play against. It was sometimes even annoying to cast yourself. Like, do I activate this? Do I not? Will I draw the fling or no?
So next up is our Chaffee for best jank. What have you got, Ben?
All right, I have a couple little packages in here. The Great Hall at the Citadel / Woe's Pathfinders. They win a joint Chaffee for being like the multicolored green splash deck. Although with Great Hall at the Citadel, you didn't even have to be green. People towards the end of the format started going pretty deep, where they would just take like as many Great Halls as they could in pack 1, and then they would not pass a single legend for the rest of the draft. And there were a lot of good legends, right? Even some of the blue-green ones stood up on their own if you could find a couple ways to scry. So, and Woe's Pathfinder, of course, ramping and fixing was pretty good in this format too. And occasionally I did beat opponents by activating Woe's Pathfinder's second ability. Honestly, Woe's Pathfinder may be a draft Chaff cube inclusion. It's a very good 2-mana mana dork. And it's obviously Chaff. Another little pairing I liked was Shadowfax plus Eagles of the North. You could attack with Shadowfax. The Eagles had 3 power for 6 mana, which was bad because most of the power of the card was contained in giving all of your stuff 1/0 and first strike. So then you attack with the Shadowfax, put in the Eagles. It's a massive amount of damage coming out of nowhere, and your whole board is first strike. So what are they going to do? Block? That was a pretty good janky interaction. And honestly, I love Watch from the Water. I got it to work like twice, and I don't think I ever saw anyone else get it to work. No, actually, I take that back. Sorry, Watcher, you don't get this. I'm deleting that from the show notes. Watcher doesn't deserve this one. It was not good, but it was jank.
Yeah, fair enough.
How about you?
Yeah, I think for me, the most fun I had in the format was when I had Ugluk and Malhur, and then like literally any other goblins, or especially if you have any cards that amass, because like the mass goblins or orcs or whatever, like you don't mind just kind of throwing away. In fact, you kind of want to do that so that your other amass cards get better value. And so like you'd throw one of them away, then like you'd put a counter on the thing, and then Ugluk would you get 2 counters, and then you'd actually get more counters from Malhur, and they just worked really well together. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit slow, and I don't think quite as like in your face as the Shadowfax Eagles combo, but when that went off, it felt really fun.
Our next Chaffee, the Chaffiest Chaff. That's if it's really good and limited, but it's never going to see play in Constructed or maybe even in Commander. This is probably it's one and done. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Aemir was the first that came to mind for me. It was a draft Chaff hero. For, not for bad reason, and one of the best cards in this format, but yeah, it's never. I mean, it might see play in like some Lord of the Rings centered commander deck, which I guess is technically constructed, but like it's not a competitive card. It's not something anybody's really going to want to like keep their hands on, and you're definitely going to see these laying around the draft table.
Yep. Yeah, I'm kind of sad because of it. I mean, 5 mana, 5/4 haste, make a 1/1 with attacks. That's a reasonable card, but in this day and age, like it doesn't have trample, it doesn't have flying. Like they could print that slightly tuned down. Like, what if instead it was like a 4 mana 3/2 flyer? It's like a, I don't know, it's like a Naya card, but it's the same text. Like they would put that in a commander deck, right?
Sure,
or something. But like this thing, it's just too awkward. It's too bulky. It costs 5. No, you're not putting this in anything else. I also had Aemir as my top pick. Voracious Fellbeast came to mind as well. Rangers of Athelion, that was a very strong one. That we'll talk about this a little more later. But the fact that so much of these cards' value is present in the tempting aspect. And tempting is what they call a parasitic mechanic, where it exists in this set and it will never see another printing unless they somehow do more Lord of the Rings cards down the line. So you're never going to see, like, I don't know, for example, Infect is an example of when the mechanic had enough support and was constructed playable. Like, people can still play Infect in Modern. I don't recommend it, but you can. It has, the stuff there to make the deck. But there's no way you could put together like a tempting deck that would be able to compete viably in like a legacy tournament or something. So for that reason, Rangers of Athelion and other tempting cards, they lose a lot of their cross applicability, making them all pretty much universally chaff, which is great for deck builders. Great for, I guess, Lord of the Rings aficionados that might want to build a Lord of the Rings commander deck at some point. And also Pelargir Survivor. Nice little card. Maybe a Draft Chaff Cube card.
All right, so next up is our Chaffee for, well, we kind of just call this one whoops in all caps. This is the card or mechanic or idea in the set that we just got completely wrong in the format breakdown. I think one stood out above the rest. What was it, Ben?
Tempting. Well, also Scry.
But
mostly
also
tempting.
Scry.
Tempting was by far underestimated by, I think, everyone. Maybe other people knew it, but I don't know. When I see these types of effects now, like Venture into the Dungeon, Tempting, anything where they pull out that weird little extra card that you have to read, the Undercity from that one Baldur's Gate set, right? I'm going to start looking at these a little more closely and assume they're probably better. Like I said, if they're containing some of the value of the card within that aspect of it, that self-contained aspect that doesn't have a lot of cross applicability, in contrast to a card like Tarmogoyf, which will synergize with everything forever and only get better. It's never going to get improved by something. They're not going to print a card that says like, oh, when you get tempted, this happens in another standard set. So
right.
I think because of that, we all kind of looked at it like, oh, it's this set's gimmick. And it'll be fine in the context of the set, hopefully. But we can't expect much else of it. Turns out it was very good in the set context, especially in limited. So shout out to Tempting. And we also kind of, at least I overvalued the Scry deck. I thought the Scry deck was going to be sick, but and it was sometimes. But
yeah. It needed a lot of work to be like really good, and only the best versions of the deck I felt like actually were worth playing. But I do want to circle back. So I would say too, like the thing that made Tempting so much better than I think I gave it credit for was something like Venture into the Dungeon. We had, you had these like kind of individual little rewards that you'd get for venturing. It was gain some life, maybe you draw a card, whatever. And then you'd like cycle back and you'd do those things again. But they were still like, every time you ventured, you got some little incremental value. Mm-hmm. Tempted by the Ring just got better and better. Each of the like levels stacked on each other, and then since you could move the ring bearer thing around, you could take advantage of those for the rest of the game. And so you did a little bit of work up front and you were good to go. The Venture in a Dungeon thing didn't really quite have that, and they tried to build that in by saying, like, having some cards say if you've completed a dungeon XYZ, but it just really didn't have the same level of oomph, I guess, that the tempting mechanic did in this format. So I think that's probably what led to me, misevaluating this. But I'm actually pleasantly surprised that I was wrong with this one. I think it turned out to be a really cool part of the format.
Next up are our top drafted commons. Chaffee goes to our top common. What was yours?
So I had some mishaps with my 17 lands data. I just went and looked, and there's only one recorded event for me. It was a trophy. So hey, that's fun.
Nice.
It was a 7-1 event. But for some reason, I must have not had 17 lands running on my computer accidentally, or maybe I did. I know I did a handful of them on my phone, so that was probably also part of what fed into that. But it looks like my top drafted common was Swarming of Moria, and I had like 2 copies of it. And that one draft that got counted by 17 lands. So,
well, you'll be proud of mine. I had drafted 59 copies of Arwen's Gift, the 4/3 mana Scry 2 Draw 2. That was a good card. Then my second one, which I have to shout out because I'm proud of myself for this one, 49 copies of Smite the Deathless. I took that card highly, and I played a lot of red. Also, I did end up finishing 24th overall. Finishing, I know it's still going, but as of release, or recording at least, I'm 24th in traditional trophies, with 24 trophies in traditional draft. So I think I had upwards of 30 on the Draft Chaff Discord. Definitely hop in there. Honestly, keeping track of our trophies and that has been a lot of fun. And we will look to see who gets the most in this next set, or even who gets the first. Although I will say some of our European friends have an edge on us in that one.
Yeah. All right. Next up is our worst bad card to lose to. What you got, Ben?
I had Mithril Coat. This was the 3 mana flash, auto equipped to a legend, and then you could pay 3 to equip it to anything. This just gave the creature indestructible. This was just so inefficient, right? And like you could usually see it coming from a mile away, but sometimes you wouldn't, and because like the combat math wouldn't change, but you'd be like, oh, like their thing lives now, or it can just block my 5/5 forever, or it was just a stupid card, and you hated losing to it. I did actually lose to a Gimli Mournful Avenger once. That was the red-green Gimli that like got counters when stuff died and then did something else. I don't even remember, but that was embarrassing. And then a long list of the Ents. Sometimes when your opponent had it on turn 1, they would actually just run away with it because their next 3 creatures came in bigger than they should have been. Rarely did you see it come down on turn 6 or 7. I think because people were usually too embarrassed to cast it. And maybe once or twice I did see people like play it on turn 7 and then it just does stone cold nothing. So there was a little debate at the beginning of the format, like whether or not Long List of the Ents would be good. I think we pretty quickly figured out that it was awful. And then I did lose to it maybe once or twice.
Not exactly the card you're looking at top deck. For me, actually, when I was thinking about this one, I couldn't come up with anything really specific off the top of my head. I don't know that maybe I didn't play enough of the format. Maybe I just got lucky in that none of the games I played against, I had those situations where I was like, oh man, really? I'm going to lose to this. I think in theory, Mithril Coat is probably the one for me as well, just because of the scenarios you described. Like one of the, where like, yeah, the math doesn't change and you just kind of are like, okay, well, how do I deal with this thing? Eventually, like someone's gonna have to deck themselves or whatever, like if this is just gonna stalemate forever. But yeah, I never actually had an experience in this format where I felt like, like the groan test where I was just like, oh, why is this happening?
Yeah, at one point in the format, I thought a card for this would have been Dreadful as the Storm. But I no longer think that's a bad card. I think it was actually just pretty solid. Yeah, the 3 mana makes something base power and toughness 5/5 until end of turn and tempt. Turns out that was actually just, like a good blue combat trick. Next up, we've got our pet card, not to be confused with card we want as a pet. What was your pet card?
It had to be Horn of Gondor. Anything that does a good Krenko impression is gonna take the cake for me.
Yeah, that one does a very good Krenko impression. I would say Doors of Durin for me. I really liked in like the 5 color green decks with like, because you could cast it off of Woe's Pathfinder or Great Hall because it was legendary. So you didn't have to like splash around with it. You could just cast it off of Great Hall to Citadel. I thought that was a cool interaction. And then just attack and hope you had a big thing on top. Sometimes you wouldn't, and you'd look pretty stupid. But or the best case is when you would take. So the thing is with Doors of Durn, you attack, scry 2, and then flip the top card of your library. If it's a creature, it comes in tapped and attacking, and then it gets like hexproof if you have an elf and trample if you have a dwarf. Until like your next turn, which is really silly. One time I had an opponent put something into play, and I was like, oh, okay, at least I can kill that thing on my turn with this sorcery. And then I couldn't. I was like, what? Oh, they have an elf. It's just still, it just blanks my sorcery speed removal. That's nuts. Anywho, the real fun with Doors of Durn is when you bottom both and then just blind flip off the top. That might push it towards Draft Chaff Cube inclusion. Maybe as one of my personal inclusions in my copy. I wouldn't. I don't know if it's worth putting in every copy. Oh, I also liked Rise of the Witch King. Felt that one was pretty hard to pass. You could cycle either the black or the green basic cycler and then get it back on turn 4, and those both happen to be very good ones to reanimate early. Maybe even on turn 3 if you had a Woe's Pathfinder. Big fan of those.
So next up is our Chaffee for the Banhammer. This is the card that we think the format would be better without. Really, not so sure we have a real contender here. I mean, there were probably a few cards in there that were designed for Commander that just didn't need to be in there from a limited perspective, but there weren't any like Dream Trawler style cards in this format. Everything felt pretty fair.
Yeah, not much soapboxing to be done on this one. Maybe. I mean, Aragorn the Uniter. I saw people cast it, right, and that was like a fun challenge. I would probably have removed Tom Bombadil and just put him in one of the commander decks straight up with like a pre-con based around sagas. Could have reprinted some of the ones. I don't think many sagas are that expensive or hard to find because a lot of them, I mean, they rarely break into constructed play, but. I don't think he needed to be in this set. And then every time you'd open it and be like, oh, sweet, a 5-color mythic that I can't do anything with. And it's like one of the best creatures, even characters from the set. And it'd be ridiculous to build a saga deck in limited. So that one was kind of a bummer. I think nothing against Tom Bombadil, but probably should have been in one of the precons or one of the other. There were so many other random products. Just put them in like the collector's boosters or something. Give us like a real 5-color legend that we could have put in decks. Next up, the Chaffee for not a card, but for a vector. Now, this is the Chaffee for the vector that made you sad. What do you got?
Yeah, it was the foodstuffs thing. I love like the food decks, and I was really excited that there was like a whole vector this time around, and it just didn't really work. Yeah, well, don't worry. I think Wilds of Eldraine's got you covered.
Looks like it. Did you see the cards that was spoiled today called Food Fight?
Yeah, well, I saw Food Fight. Food Coma's another one that was spoiled. Yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah, I have a feeling there'll be some good food cards for you from that one. For me, it was Scry. I loved the Scry deck when it came together, which was rare. But it was usually like maybe like 3 cards in, you pack one, pick one, Rangers of Athelion, and then you take like a Saruman's Trickery, and then you get an Arwen, and you're like, oh, okay,
yeah,
I can do this. Or you get like an Elrond or something. We might have already mentioned this story on the podcast, but LSV drafted Scry at the Pro Tour after he got like a pick 6 Elrond, and then wheeled he had the Elrond there, pick 6, and then wheeled it, and then took it like with like 1 or 2 cards left in the pack, and then opened the second one in pack 2, and he was already kind of in bluish tangential, and he was like, all right, I guess we'll do this. He was the only Scry drafter. He got everything. His deck was one of the best Scry decks I've ever seen, and it went 1-2. And if LSV can't do it, I'm not going to presume that. Well, I mean, he did face against Battle the Bywater a couple times, which is rough to face if you're playing blue-green because you just grow your board so much. And that's a flavor fail. Battle's supposed to kill the goblins and orcs, but instead it hit the elves. That's not cool. So that one made me pretty upset.
Okay, so the flip side of that, the vector that makes you glad.
My Chaffee also goes to Scry because when it does get there, I had so much more fun playing the Scry decks. It felt like you were playing Commander and everyone else was playing like a limited deck, and you have like an Arwen and an Elrond and a Galadriel, and you have like 5 triggers on the stack. All of them are accruing your value. They're drawing cards, they're scrying, you're putting lands into play, you're making tokens, all this nonsense. Plus, you're stacking your deck. Like, there's a card that says Scry 3. That can be good in the right scenario. The 3 mana Elrond that Lord of Rivendell, I think, the one that whenever a creature ETBs, you scry, and then you get to tempt if it's the second time it happened. That was a big engine piece, and I really enjoyed the decks that could make that just kind of go off. So both of these Chaffies go to scry for me. I'm going to miss playing that deck.
Understandable. For me, it was ring bearing and goblins. I think the goblins decks were really fun when they came together, like I mentioned, with really those two kind of legends. And then again, any of the ring bearing stuff, like if you built a deck that actually worked with tempt and you had solid ring bearers, I just thought that worked so much better than I expected it to. So I was really happy when I was able to get one of those decks together. And it turned out to not actually be that hard.
All right, now it's time. Chaffee for the creature you want most as a pet. Let's hear it.
Yeah, a little bit of a theme going on here, I see. But for me, it was Bill the Pony. Like, how do you turn Bill away?
And Bill was surprisingly good. The 1/4 body could block ring bearers, and as a ring bearer, could basically never be blocked because it was a 1/4 that was secretly a 4/4. So Bill would sometimes just fully stall the board in any direction, which was a little weird for a white card to do, but it was also just a 1/4 that made 2 food. Sometimes if you were at low life, you could just 1/4 gain 6 life, and that's a thick blocker. So pretty good.
Yep.
On theme, mine was Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, who shows in the meaning of haste and had a lot of kind of fun interactions. I liked using Shadowfax to put the Protector of Gondor into play, the 3/3 that makes a 1/1. It was cool because the 1/1 wouldn't come in tapped and attacking, but the 3/3 would. So usually you wouldn't want the 1/1 to come in attacking anyway. Putting Erkenbrand in to act as like a mini overrun, similar to putting in the Eagles of the North. That's also a little thing there. Anything else? No, those are probably the best interactions with those. I think I saw someone. Oh no, maybe I did. I think I put a Gandalf the Grey into play once. The 3/4 who needs fixing, right?
Yeah. All right, next up, cards never cast. For me, it was a really long list. I didn't do a ton of drafting of this format. Pretty much all of the fun rares, I would say. I haven't had the chance to draft yet.
I drafted a ridiculous amount of this format, and even I didn't get to draft some of these things. Anduril and Sting, the equipments, I didn't touch those. I never got an Aragorn deck, which was kind of sad. I mean, maybe if I see, I might still fire 1 or 2, but with Vintage Cube and Arena Cube, it's sorry, Lord of the Rings, but you're gonna fall on the wayside there. I never cast a couple obvious ones like Shagrat the Loot Bearer and Tom Bombadil. Those cards shouldn't have been in this format. I don't really get why they were there. And then Chaffee for Draft Chaff Cube inclusions. Ooh, you already got one that I missed entirely. That one's already in the cube. How did I forget?
Oh yeah. Well, I know we talked about it earlier, but I wasn't sure if the update had actually been made or if we had publicized it yet. So
it has, yeah.
So that would be Rosie Cotton of South Lane, of course. Just a really solid white creature. Fits a lot of the themes in the Draft Chaff cube with token creation, and she's kind of like a nice little package, right? She ETBs to make a token, and then she's, putting a counter on something already. So kind of a 3 mana, kind of makes up the fact that she's a 3 mana 1/1, I guess. But yeah, super solid inclusion, and probably never going to see play in any real decks outside of limited.
Probably not. I mean, she does complete the infinite combo. Now that the tokens counters infinite combo, I mean, this is just a huge piece of that. So she can go infinite with, I think, like 3 or 4 other cards in the cube, and then a couple combinations of slightly more roundabout ways to get it to go infinite. But yeah, Rosie's a big part of the twin deck.
Yeah, we really need to keep an eye on that deck. I feel like it's got too many infinite combos now. It's getting there.
No, I don't think we will. I think we're just going to let it lie, not prod the bears too much, and see what happens. So a couple other ones that I was tossing around the ideas for. Woe's Pathfinder. Did I already put that one in? Maybe I did. I honestly don't remember. But some generic cards like Smite the Deathless might make it in someday if we're looking for like a lightning bolt effect. Maybe some of the funny cards that kind of popped off towards the end of the format, like Wizard's Rockets and Great Hall of the Citadel. We have a good number of legends in the cube, so something like Great Hall that could actually work. Although if you could just get one, you really do want like three to make that deck work best. And then maybe we could see putting something like Last March of the Ents in for like the big massive spells deck. What's that one? Aether Searcher, I think it is. It's like a 7-mana 4/4, and when it ETBs, you get to free cast a card from your sideboard. That's a fun combo with Last March of the Ents. Kind of a mini, like, dump your whole hand into play, like a tooth and nail effect.
Yeah.
And maybe Aermer we'll get in someday, too.
Yeah, we do usually try to put as many of the draft heroes as we can into the cube. There are quite a few in there, but they don't all fit, and so I think there's an argument to be made for Aermer, but probably not necessarily right now.
Yeah, this was tough because it's such a parasitic set. Like, while me, a huge Lord of the Rings fan, would want to put something like Frodo or Bilbo or Gollum in somehow, just the fact that some of these cards have value in their tempt abilities, and tempt abilities, work best with one another. There's pretty much a 0% chance any card with Tempted by the Ring ever gets into the cube, because there's probably a better version of it that has power somewhere else. Like maybe a different version of the card doesn't have Tempt on it, but is an instant instead of a sorcery. Like there'll always be a strictly better version of those cards elsewhere.
All right, so next up is our Would You Rather, Chaffee. This time around, we're asking, would you rather never draft LTR again or be tasked with taking the ring to Mordor?
I gotta say, they made it look pretty easy. You get to hang out with your friends, you get to hang out with wizards, you get Lembas, which, I mean, you don't have to cook for days, like leftovers. Yeah. That's great. Apparently, it seemed to taste pretty good too. Potatoes, rabbit, sounds like a pretty healthy diet. There was a little bit of like internal corruption, stabbing, death. Like a small price to pay, right? Lord of the Rings is a great set, and I would like to draft it again. This is the type of set that I think maybe once the One Ring, and honestly, Orcish Bowmasters at this point too, maybe once this hype, settles down a little bit, and maybe if I can find a box for a reasonable price, this would be the fun type of set to have. Like you just pick up a box, you let it sit on your shelf for a couple of years, and then one day you're having a draft, and you're like, "Ooh, hey everyone. Lord of the Rings. You can open a Bowmasters or a One Ring." And then everyone's like, "Oh, okay, that's pretty good." And then you'll get to play with all these fun cards again. And honestly, this is the type of set where maybe I could even convince some non-hardcore Magic players to join in, just because it's Lord of the Rings. Like, this isn't that complicated, the set. Sure, the tempting thing, that's harder. And I wouldn't stick a first-time player in here, but I could definitely pull some friends that, tangentially know how to play, and maybe wouldn't play I don't know, Wilds of Eldraine might be a little spooky, or but they might sit down for Lord of the Rings. So big fan of this set. I think I could get the ring to Mordor. You?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably find an eagle or two. I don't think it'd be too hard to get the ring to Mordor.
Those eagles, they're one way.
That's true, but like that's half the battle, right? Frodo had to go. I guess he got the back trip. I would just take them there, and then then you're good to go. It's a much easier trip back. It's functionally just taking a nice like cross country road trip. That said, I mean, the draft format was really fun. I think this was a huge success for the first like big Universes Beyond full set. They picked a great IP to do this with. I think, again, to your point, Ben, if they had tried to do like a Fortnite full set, it just would have flopped. Like nobody would have been into that. But Lord of the Rings is such a joke. Yeah, Lord of the Rings is such a loved IP, and they really did treat it with respect. I know there was some controversy around some of the cards they printed in like different art styles and stuff, but that aside, like they treated the IP and the source material with a lot of respect, and I think real like diehard Lord of the Rings fans just really appreciate it, and then diehard Magic fans appreciate it as well, because it really kind of blended the two really nicely. I think this is the perfect set to do a set cube for. I wouldn't mind actually. I think I may put one of those together.
Good point.
Because it is parasitic. It's very insular, but then, it's as you've shown the Discord and talked about on the show, it's a format you can just keep drafting over and over again and not really get tired of. So
yeah, surprisingly great, right? I guess I am a little concerned about how many other sets like this they'll make. Like, how many other IPs out there can we cross over with and have it be this level of quality, right? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't. Are they? I forget. Is Fallout going to be this same thing? Are they doing a full set for that? I don't even remember.
No, I think it was Assassin's Creed was getting a full set.
Huh? Or was that the one that was just doing
them.
packs?
Maybe,
in any case, like,
it was one of the two.
Lord of the Rings and Magic fans, the Venn diagram crossover is enormous, right? I don't think there's that many other brands where the crossover is so on point and where it's gonna flow so seamlessly, right? Like a Gandalf Lord of the Rings card. Sure. Like, of course you look at it like someone's trade binder and see that. But you look in and, like, I don't know, you see a Fortnite character or even a Doctor Who character, like, which I'm a fan of, but other people just don't care at all. Like, and this one was around for a while, right? What happens when there's a set on Arena that doesn't have this kind of huge mass crossover appeal? It'll be a little bit of a bummer. It might feel a little weird, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But this one, I got to say, was a huge success. As for the way they interpreted the Lord of the Rings in its own new way, and yeah, some of the decisions they made about how to portray characters, loved it. Really just stick it to the racists, right? And honestly, at this point, like, why shouldn't people see themselves represented in their heroes? This was a great opportunity to take that mentality and own it, right? Honestly, like, I don't think this set could have gone much better. So shout out to all the people that designed the cards and especially the arts. A lot of the special printings look fantastic. The One Ring gimmick was a thing, right? It was funny. It got people talking, spawned countless years worth of discourse. So that was a success too, I think. Glad that we still got a limited format out of this, right? Like, it could have been that with all this other nonsense that they had to consider, they just kind of let the limited format slip by the wayside. But no, we still got a reasonable set with a lot of fun stuff to do and a cool, unique mechanic and environment. So hopefully the next time they do something like this, they put just as much love and thought into the drafting portion. Now, before we call it a show, woe is me. Woe is here. Wilds of Eldraine. Yeah, we have almost a full spoiler at this point. They started doing commander spoilers too, I think. So we're starting to get a lot of the cards. What are you looking forward to in this set?
Honestly, I don't know where to start. I don't actually know that I expect this format to be a phenomenal draft experience, but for some reason it has me more excited than I've been in a little while. Like, much more excited than I was about, like, Mom. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe it's just because it's new and, like, I kind of do like the, like, storybook kind of fairy tale-esque sort of thing. It's just fun. They're doing, like, some silly things like Scream Puff. Like, come on, how do you not love that?
So
like,
funny.
It's just incredible. And, like, they're bringing some, like, fun overlaps with different sorts of fairy tales. And I saw some people on Twitter, I think, saying, like, I don't understand how they're like pulling in fairy tales in this one. They are being a little more subtle about it, I think, overall than they did with Throne of Eldraine. Yeah. Throne of Eldraine was kind of in your face. You're like, oh yeah, that's Hansel and Gretel, or that's, you know, XYZ. This one feels a little bit more like they've adapted those stories into Magic a little bit better, a little more seamlessly. So you do kind of have to look pretty hard to find them, but, like, you know, it's very obvious. Like, Ruby is, you know, going to find her grandmother or whatever. Like,
Red Riding Hood, all that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Red Riding Hood. They did the Beanstalk thing, Jack and the Beanstalk. And the way they handled spoilers this time around, I thought was cool, with the way that they gave us the signpost uncommons, like, right away, which typically doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really nice. So you can see how things fit into that as other cards are being spoiled. Again, not really sure yet. I haven't done enough evaluation of the set as a whole, as at least with the pieces we have. to know if I think this is going to be a really fun format. But we're gonna have some cool like different vectors. I mean, rats is a deck you can play. Like that's gonna be fun. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think this is going to be a fun set, and of course, I'm looking forward to those WOT cards because I want a bunch of them for Commander.
yeah. Honestly, I'm still laughing at that card, Rat Out. It's like a it's like so a -1, but the flavor text is like, here, hold this, and the art is just a guy throwing a rat at someone. It's so good. Honestly, like these types of sets, this and even Lord of the Rings past, these are the ones where like you're not afraid to leave a bunch of your cards out on your desk. So when your roommate comes over and is like, "Oh, that's kind of funny," whereas like if you leave like a mom card out, it's like, I don't know, Hidetsugu and Kairi. Like, what is it? What does this mean? Yeah. But like, if you leave Scream Puff laying around, that's funny, right? Yeah. This is the type of stuff that inspires a lot of maybe newer or even just more Vorthosy players to go more into it and to see what's up, because it is best when it adapts it into its own way. And yeah, we're kind of starting fresh with like a new story cycle. I'll comment on the story later. I didn't really love it, but honestly, the story's kind of in the background. Like Kellen, whatever. Rowan, she's evil now, I guess. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I do think it's kind of funny that we're getting some early plants for what was it? Something Burrow, Fey Burrow, or
Gloomburrow.
We're seeing a bunch of bunnies, a bunch of otters, a bunch of other similar stuff like that, and I'm liking that direction. I'm a big fan of those types of cards. If like the top deck in standard is like bunnies.deck, I'd be pretty happy. Or rats.deck, like plus all these food puns everywhere. Clearly, dude, I don't know. I think you got to expand into 5-color food. At this point, you have enough cards to justify.
What's the commander? Like, how do you have a better food commander? How do you have a better food commander than Guillaume Master Chef? Come on.
It's I don't know, the Dragon or something, or
no, that's not on flavor enough. I can't just play a 5-color commander to have a 5-color commander. It's got to be on flavor. This whole deck, it's about food. The flavor matters.
It's about flavors. Yeah, okay. Honestly, I hope they spoil some kind of 5-color legend, or I don't know. At this point, we're seeing good food cards in every color, so hopefully they print a 5-color food thing at some point.
Yeah, or at least like partners that make sense for a food deck that give me all 5 colors, something like that. Because like I really don't want to have to play like Morphodon or whatever to get like. I was already upset I couldn't run red, and now we have like really good blue and white food cards too. So yeah. Well, that about does it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening. Do check out the Discord if you haven't already. Again, the link to that is in the episode description as well as on our Twitter page. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/DraftChaffPod. Again, huge thanks to everybody who supports us there. We will have some updates about the Patreon coming soon. I'm going to just plant that little seed there, so keep an ear out for that. And if you'd like to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at DraftChaffPod. Thanks, folks, and we'll catch you next week.
So, real quick here. I'm curious if any of our listeners have been watching this show on HBO Max or whatever. I don't think it's changing their names, Twitter, whatever. This show, How To with John Wilson. Have you heard of it?
Nope.
It's in the same vein as some other shows where it's. I mean, it kind of falls within this big sphere of like. Nathan For You and like the Eric Andre show. A lot of the same people that work on a lot of these big like kind of comedy shows work on this too. Big cross appeal there. But The Rehearsal also comes to mind. Also Nathan Fielder production. But How To with John Wilson. The best way I can describe it is a dude in New York owns a camera, and HBO hired him to just film. And he comments on it and weaves these stories throughout. And he has this gift of spotting the most absurd things that you always feel like you see in New York City, but no one would ever believe you if you told them. And he manages to get them all on video, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. It goes so much deeper from there. Highly recommend. The new season is excellent. The newest one, How to Watch the Big Game, is incredible. And I don't know. I'll never look at vacuums the same way again. We'll say that. So curious to know if any of our listeners have seen it, and a recommendation from myself to everyone, including you, definitely check it out.